everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is RACHELRAE, and today we're going to do a special episode here on RACHELRAE, where we're going to introduce, what was it? Theory Tuesdays! We need like a... I have James here with me, and we are excited to bring you another conspiracy theory. This time, it's one that is not very well known in the English-speaking world. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Jan.
So before we get into what this is all about and fill you with the tea, I'm going to tell you a little bit of what we're working on today. We're working on Galaxy by Diamond Art Club. I'll just move it up a little bit so that you can see. There she is. We're getting really close to the end of this painting. And I'm working with a few things. So I have a very aptly themed Shiny Shazza tray. This is from Shiny Shazza in the UK on Etsy. And obviously it has little aliens in it. Super cute. That was not on purpose. I did not do that on purpose. I just thought it was cute. I've got my pen. This is from Enabler's Outpost, and this is called Rachel's Galaxy. They named a pen after me. Isn't that so cute?
And it's a Galaxy one.
Yeah.
Wow, cool.
So on theme. I'm using my Space Unicorn Patty Wax. This is Patty Wax Super Sticky. So I'm using that in the single tip, and then I'm using the Black Cherry regular scented Patty Wax for my multi-placer, just so you know. And then what else do I have? Oh, and this, of course, this is a cover minder from my shop. This is a glow-in-the-dark butterfly. And so under here, all of these little things glow in the dark, and it sits on your diamond painting like that. I love it. It's super cute. And if I can find the magnet again, I am using the Harbor Freight container system for my diamonds, and I have all of those accessories linked down below in the description of this video in case you are looking to get you some. But without any further ado, let's start. So I'm going to choose a color, and I'm going to let James tell us about what this theory is today. And is it alien related?
It is alien related, yeah. Okay,
so if you are not into aliens, I don't know what to tell you, but actually, you know, you might actually like it even if you're not into like the normal alien story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think this is really interesting. So this is this took place in Italy, and so a little bit about the research. Like, I watched a documentary on it. It's called The Friendship Case.
The Friendship Case.
Yeah, The Friendship Case.
Okay.
And I watched a documentary on it on YouTube, so I guess you guys can go and watch it, and there'll be interviews with a lot of the people I'm talking about here. Then I kind of read a lot of Italian websites, so I was using Google Translate to read those.
Okay.
And I also saw a lecture by the guy that wrote the book, and I've seen a couple of interviews on YouTube as well, but I had to pick ones where they had subtitles on them. Right. Yeah. And
because you don't really speak Italian.
I don't speak Italian at all. So my pronunciation here could be pretty bad.
We're gonna simplify it, right? We talked about that, like, we might just simplify things a little bit, maybe not give you all the place names, because it's kind of confusing.
It would be confusing, yeah, I think so. So
for English speakers anyway.
Yeah, I've simplified it, and I'll try and streamline it, you know. But I guess let's just jump in and see how we do.
Okay.
So so this all came to light in 2007. Mm-hmm. When an engineer, he's a computer engineer, and he works at a university. Mm-hmm. His name is Stefano Brescia, and he was actually involved in this. So he wrote a book in 2007 called Mass Contact.
Mass Contact.
Mass Contact. I'm not going to attempt the title in Italian, but it was translated it was published in English in 2009.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you know, if you're interested, you can get it on Amazon and stuff like that. And you can definitely find the introduction and the closing pages and stuff like that on Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and Stefano was actually involved in this as well. So what he revealed in his book was a case of mass contact with aliens
Okay.
that lasted over 2 decades
Oh.
and involved at least dozens of people, possibly hundreds of people in Italy.
Okay.
And it took place between 1956 and 1978. So you're talking about a long, 2 decades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it all over different areas, or was it like just in a region, or?
It was mainly around this town called Pescara.
Okay.
Pescara is in a region of Italy called Umbruzzo, I think. But anyway, it's about halfway down the east coast of Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's easier to remember.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, I guess let's start. So it starts in 1956.
1956.
Yeah, and the main character in this story, the whole way through it, the guy that really is the linchpin, is this character called Bruno Sanchichichi. Bruno.
Got
We'll
it.
call him Bruno. Yeah, so there's Bruno Sanchichichi, and he's really the main character. So what happens, how the story opens is that in 1956, Bruno is a student.
Mm-hmm.
And he's studying psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. And Bruno is really interested in kind of old documents. Mm-hmm. So a friend of his gifts him an old document that he has, you know?
Yeah.
And Bruno and his two friends, Giancarlo and Giulio,
mm-hmm.
are looking at the document one day and they say, oh wow, this is like the Pisa fortress, just 20 kilometers away from our home in Pescara. It appears to be a map. So,
okay.
So they think, you know, let's go and explore this fortress.
Mm-hmm.
So they go up and they're walking around the grounds of the fortress. And then they come across these two guys and immediately they think there's something suspicious about these people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the guy on the right is about 3 feet tall. But the guy on the left, well, he's 9 feet tall. So this is very unusual, you know? And the taller character, who's kind of the leader, he says, oh, don't be afraid, you know, we come in peace.
We come in peace.
Yeah. And they get, so they get chatting to these two guys. And the two guys tell them that they're from an alien federation. Yeah. And the alien federation is a number of different, would you call them species, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a number of different alien species. They come from over 50 different planets that are spread throughout the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And that they've been on Earth for 3,000 years.
3,000 years.
For 3,000 years.
Huh.
Yeah, and that they're here to help humanity in its development.
Okay.
Yeah, so that night then, they take the three of them to visit their underground base.
Okay.
Now,
so they're just like, hey, we found you wandering outside of this place. Come with us.
Well, they do. And they say they're there to help humanity. And they say that...
well, I guess if you find like a 9 foot tall dude...
yeah.
It's like, I come in peace. You might follow him. I don't know.
You know, anyone that 9 foot tall, 50s, I'd be inclined to believe them.
Yeah.
So they take them to their underground base, and they have this massive underground base, and it's 20 kilometers below the surface of the Earth, and it's...
What would that be in feet? 20 kilometers is like...
a kilometer is, well, 1 mile is about 1.4, or 1 mile is about 1.4 kilometers. So it's going to be about 15 miles under the Earth. Okay. Inside in the crust of the Earth. And they've made this absolutely massive cavern, you know? Okay. And it's 200 miles long. So it goes like almost half the length of Italy or whatever, you know? Okay. Yeah, and it's maybe 300 meters in height. And it's an oval-shaped kind of cavern that they've made. Yeah, and it stretches from like the foothills of the Apennines, you know, the mountains that go down the middle of Italy.
Yeah.
It stretches from there all the way out into the Adriatic. And it's so massive, this cavern that they've made, that it has its own weather system.
Whoa.
Yeah, so there's rain clouds in there and, you know, wind, and it's really huge. And they also describe that, it has almost like an artificial sun. So it has a day-night kind of cycle as well in this cavern.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have a number of bases in this cavern based around Italy. But the aliens also tell them that there are 200 aliens working in this base, in the Italian one. But there are a number of other bases, like the Italian one is their European base. But then they have a base in South America. They have one in Africa, they have one in Australia. They have maybe 6 or 7 bases all around, one on each continent, you know, that kind of way?
Right. I was about to ask, like, why Italy?
Well, they chose Italy because they really, really like Italy.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. And there's some... So over the course of a few years, 2 or 3 years, they're meeting with these 3 guys maybe once a month, that kind of way. And they might meet them in the park, or there's an awful lot of where they meet them. The small alien and the big alien. They meet the 2 of them, or the 3 guys, sorry, and they like take long moonlit walks on the beach, and
so they actually meet them in, like, outside of the cave.
Yeah, they meet them outside of the cave.
I thought that they'd be afraid to, like, be out and about, you know?
Well, you remember I said there was like 50 different alien races or species involved?
Yeah.
Most of them look like humans. Almost all of them look like humans. And some of them are this kind of the same height as humans. So some of them actually live among us.
Okay, that's not creepy.
There's even there's even a thing I read on one of the websites where one of the people involved in it said, like one day he was walking through town in Pescara, and he saw one of the aliens drive by in like a van from the electrical company. This alien worked for the electrical company.
Wow.
Yeah. And so what happens then is the aliens start to like tell them about their mission, you know? So what it is these aliens think that humanity is moving in the wrong direction, you know?
Right.
Yeah, like we've developed nuclear weapons and we're fighting each other all the time, you know? And we should be moving back away from, we should be moving back to a more traditional rural way of living.
Okay.
Is what they say. And so the aliens actually run their machinery on something that they call Umera, I believe it's called.
Umera?
Yeah, but it's the energy of love.
Umami?
No, it's Umera, but it's a type of energy that's formed from friendship and love and care. Yeah, so they power all their technology and their instruments off of this.
The power of love.
With the power of love. The aliens run things with the power of love. They also have they have different technologies. So they have this one technology called a nucleus, or a nuclei in singular. And Bruno has this dog, you know? And the dog is a German Shepherd. So the aliens put a nuclei in Bruno's paw. So sometimes the German Shepherd's paw, and the German Shepherd's called Dick.
Of course.
So they put the nuclei in Dick's paw. So sometimes when Bruno's out walking the dog, the dog will suddenly just take off into the woods, or, you know...
It's like following a signal or something?
Yeah, he's got a signal and he takes off, and then Bruno follows him. And there are the aliens, you know, he comes through the trees into a clearing, And they're the aliens, and they're like...
Did they get abducted? Like, did they, like, take his dog and be like, we're gonna do this to your dog?
No, they can do this magically, I think. Almost magically. Because they give, after a while, they give Bruno a nuclei that they put behind his ear. And now they can telepathically communicate with him.
Whoa.
So that they can enable him to better fulfill his mission for them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the mission is to bring humanity closer together. And
But Bruno was into this.
Oh yeah, Bruno's crazy into this. Bruno is very supportive of this, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And like
just checking, this isn't like your traditional, like, you're getting abducted and you're
there's nothing
being probed.
There's nothing traumatic about this. Like they're really into it, you know? Like that's why they call it
the friendship case.
Yeah, like Bruno himself, I believe, even called it the friendship case, that it was a case of friendship. Like there's a part in one of the things where I read that like they've been living in Italy so long that they really love the Italian way of life, you know? Mm-hmm. And all of the aliens speak Italian, but they speak Italian in the specific dialect from that region. Not like, you know, book Italian. They speak the dialect from that area. And then there's lots of stories as well, like the big alien really likes smoking cigars and drinking red wine.
The tall guy. The
tall guy, yeah. And he drinks red wine. One of the guys in it is at pains to say as well that the alien not only does he drink red wine, but he drinks red wine in the traditional rural Italian way, which is straight from the bottle. Yeah, no glass. And the aliens are saying that they're worried because like Italy is losing its traditional Italian values. You know, the kids are like, this is between 1956 and 1958 or 9, you know, for this 3-year period. Mm-hmm. That they're saying that they're concerned because like younger Italians are losing the traditional way of life, and they're losing the morals that go with it, you know, community and helping your neighbors, and you know, and not being interested in material goods, being interested in your relationships with people rather than in material possessions.
Right.
Yeah. So
I think I have a few Italian viewers, so if you know where this is going, don't say anything yet.
Yeah, I've abridged a lot of this. So that's it. So Bruno, Giancarlo, and Giulio are meeting these guys for a few years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the aliens say, "Okay, that's great. Now we need to get more people involved, and we need to spread our message of love and friendship."
Right.
Okay.
And these guys aren't like on drugs or something. They're just.
I don't know. I mean, like, Bruno's also, as well as being a psychologist and a psychiatrist, he's also written a lot of like theological works. You know, mm-hmm. So he's written about a lot of books about like transubstantiation is one of the things he's written about. It's a thing in Catholic theology. And he's also written an awful lot of books about the St. Francis of Assisi.
Yeah.
And there's even one character, Paolo, that I'll speak about in a minute, said that, you know, Bruno really liked the Franciscan friars, and, you know, he was really, what would you say? He was dedicated to them, you know?
Yeah.
And believed that they were on a right path, you know? And like St. Francis then would be quite famous for his love of animals and his compassion towards people.
Right. So he wasn't a guy who was probably addicted to drugs. He was probably just like a religious guy, or at least he's
a religious moral guy.
Moral guy, yeah.
Yeah, you know, he's got a lot of morals. And again, you know, like for him to be so interested in Francis of Assisi and his teachings as well, they're very similar kind of themes, you know. Mm-hmm. Love, help your community, a love of animals, like, you know, that kind of way.
Right.
Yeah. So after 3 or 4 years of meeting them in about 1959, the aliens say, okay, we need to get some more people involved because we need to spread our message of love and friendship.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll tell you about some of the people. Like this, the book was written by a guy called Stefano Bercia. Yeah?
Yeah, Stefano.
Stefano, yeah. And again, like I said, Stefano he's a lecturer in a university. Mm-hmm. He's a lecturer in computer science.
Okay.
And he met Bruno in 1963, mm-hmm. and that's how he became involved in it.
Okay, so 1963.
In 1963, yeah. I think I'll leave it there for the moment with him, but I'll talk about another character that's in Stefano's book. He's a guy called Paolo di Girolamo. So I'm going to call him Paolo.
Okay, yeah.
So Paolo is an engineer, and he's also a lecturer in a university. All of the characters involved in this are very credible professionals, you know? Mm-hmm. There's several university lecturers, there's lawyers, there's even an Italian diplomat is implicated in it, mm-hmm. you know? So I guess I'll tell you Paolo's story there. Okay. So Paolo is a friend of a journalist, also called Bruno, but his name is Bruno Ghiabaldi. So I'm going to call him Ghiabaldi. Yeah. Okay? Okay. So, and Bruno Ghiabaldi is, he's a journalist. He specializes in, aeronautics and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. So he wrote two books. One book he wrote in the early to mid 50s, and it's a history of air travel. And he wrote another book in the mid 70s, and that's about UFOs. Okay? Okay. So both Ghiabaldi and Paolo are very interested in UFOs. Yeah? Yeah. So in 1973, Ghiabaldi says to Paolo, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine, you know? And he's in contact with aliens.
Yeah, he knows aliens.
Yeah, he just gives it straight out. He just says he's in contact with aliens, and would you like to meet him? At which point, obviously, Paolo says, would I? I would love to meet him. So Paolo writes a letter to the aliens. Okay. And he goes along to Bruno's house with Ghiabaldi.
Assuming that he could just hand over the letter and...
Yeah, he was assuming he would just be able to hand over the letter, or maybe Bruno would give the letter to the aliens. Okay. So they get to Bruno's house, and there's a number of people there. There's maybe a dozen people in the house. Mm-hmm. And they're all sitting around, and they're having a glass of wine, and they have something to eat, and they're talking about UFOs and all this kind of thing. And then suddenly Bruno says...
UFO Appreciation Club.
Yeah, and then suddenly Bruno, this is Bruno Samcici, Bruno says, oh, I think it's a time for a message. And he goes over and he turns on the radio, and he tunes it to static between channels. Mm-hmm. And then after maybe a minute or two, there's some loud beeps, and then the aliens come on. Huh. And they start speaking to them through the radio. And they welcome Paolo, and then they give some, this is a common theme here, where the aliens will speak through the radio, and they'll give messages of hope and love, you know? Mm-hmm. And they'll give little maybe little sermons on moral how would you say, moral instruction, or they'll give positive messages and
how to be better to each other.
How to be better to each other, how to increase the love and friendship, mm-hmm. and all this. So the aliens give these messages, and then at the very end...
Wait, can they see the future or something?
I don't get the indication that they can see the future.
Okay.
But they're about increasing love, Okay. And they need the love because that's how they power their amazing technology. Right. Yeah. So the aliens then say, Bruno Samcici, go into the other room and bring out the statue of the tiger. So Bruno goes in the other room and he brings out the statue of the tiger, and he places it on a sideboard, and he steps back and then the aliens say, we will now transport the tiger. And there's a flash of light, and the tiger has disappeared, Yeah. So Paolo is absolutely gobsmacked, you know? And Bruno explains that, well, this is normal, like the aliens have this amazing transporter technology. And then Paolo notices that the letter he wrote for the aliens, it's missing. It's no longer on the table. Yeah. So he's really freaked out, you know?
Yeah.
And he's really quite scared. And he asks, so he's really quite scared. So then Bruno Sanchichichi says like, okay, well, we should maybe go outside and just have a walk, you know, and get your thoughts together. So they all go outside and they're walking around in the fresh air. And then suddenly there's this flash of light. And Paolo's letter that he wrote to the aliens dropped out of the sky. Like literally just materialized 5 feet in the air and just dropped on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, and when they pick it up, it's the letter inside the envelope is all scorched around the edges.
Probably from the light.
Probably, yeah, it's, you know.
Yeah.
So Paolo is amazed with this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he stays with the group. This seems to be a normal thing. Like it went on for over 2 decades, but people would be involved for a short period of time, you know, for different periods of time. And they would all be given different missions according to their skills. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So Paolo doesn't really go into what his mission was, but he said that he went around to Bruno's house maybe another 5 or 6 times over the course of a year and a half. And always the same kind of thing where they get together, they talk for a little while, and then Bruno will tune in the radio and the aliens will speak to them and give them instruction. Yeah?
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, that goes on for about a year or so. And I'll give you another character, and this is an example of someone that the aliens are using because of their particular skill set, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Gaspare de Lama.
Gaspare.
Yeah, so Gaspare. And Gaspare is a painter, you know? He's a painter, but he has an interest also in UFOs. Okay? So what happens here in 1961, do you remember Garibaldi? Yeah. So Garibaldi, the journalist, was at a beach that's near Pescara when he photographed some UFOs. Yeah, and he had the UFO photographs published in a magazine, and it was like Italy's, at the time, only, in 1961, it was the only UFO magazine in Italy.
Okay.
I kind of suspect that Garibaldi might have been the publisher, or he might have worked for this magazine. But either way, anyway, he photographed some UFOs in 1961 at a beach.
Okay.
The story is that his car broke down, like his tire got punctured, and he was replacing the tire. And he had a camera on him, obviously, because he's a journalist, you know?
Yeah.
And then suddenly he sees these UFOs and he photographs them. So Gaspare writes a short note saying that he really liked the images and could you explain more about the circumstances around them to Garibaldi. And Garibaldi contacts him, writes back to him and says, oh, yeah, no problem, and explains a few more details. And then they start corresponding.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're corresponding for a while, and Gaspare is part of a UFO group, and he's really interested in, like, they get together every month, and they kind of go through all of the sightings and try and see which ones are credible, which ones aren't credible.
Okay.
So Garibaldi, who took the photograph of the UFO, offers to come over and tell them about how he took the photograph of the UFO. So he comes and joins their group at the next meeting, and he tells them everything. The underground bases, the alien federation that are trying to help humanity increase the love and friendship, the whole 9 yards. And then he says to Gaspare, do you want to meet my friend Bruno, who's the main point of contact with the aliens? And Gaspare says, yes.
Duh.
Yes, I would. And so they go around to they go round to Bruno's house, and it's a very similar story, you know?
Yeah.
Very, very similar story. He goes round and he describes going to a few meetings where, again, the same thing would happen. They would talk generally about UFOs and just, you know, shoot the breeze. And then Bruno would say, oh, it's time to speak to the aliens or to hear from our friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, they never really said aliens either. They would call them their friends, you know. Yeah, so it's time to hear from our friends. And he would go and turn on the radio, and then these Federation, this Galactic Federation, would talk to them, give them instructions, talk about current events and what they can do to improve the situation, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these are activist aliens, you know, and what they want to do is increase the love.
Right.
Yeah. So they say they do all this, and then after about 4 or 5 meetings, Bruno asks Gaspare to come over to his house, you know? And he says, please come over and bring with you a radio. Like a small portable radio.
Okay.
So Gaspare comes over and he brings the radio, and him and Bruno speak for a while. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then I've got a quote here actually, like, so then Bruno asked him for the radio. And the quote from Gaspare is, and he put it on the table. And after 2 or 3 minutes, a blue flame came out of it, a half a meter high. And then he say, okay, now it's ready. Carry this radio with you always. So Gaspare goes away. And, you know, he's using the radio and he's listening to radio shows. And then one day, this message comes through the radio. And it's from this character called Sigir. And Sigir says, you know, Gaspare, you're a talented painter. You know, you're good at making images. I need you to bring your camera and a fresh roll of film, and I need you to bring it to this location. So Gaspare says, okay. So he goes and gets his camera, and he buys a roll of film on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gets to the location, there's this guy who just looks like any other person, you know, any other human.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, Gaspare, it's good to see you, you know. He goes, have you got your camera and film? And he says, yeah, here it is, like, do you want to load it? And the alien goes, well, the Federation guy goes to him, no, you must do everything yourself. You must load the camera yourself. So Gaspare puts the film in the camera. And then the alien says, please wait here for a moment. You know, we have something to show you. And then he walks off into the bushes. So Gaspare is standing there with his camera. And then next thing you know, a UFO just flies over and starts hovering on it. Yeah, so Gaspare takes loads of photographs of this UFO.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then, over the next 5 years, Gaspare is contacted by the aliens 7 or 8 more times. Mm-hmm. And each time they tell him to go to a location, and then he photographs UFOs at that location that they make appear. He never meets another person. Like, he never meets another of these aliens.
Okay.
It's just that one time. But each time they tell him, you know, at 8 p.m., come to this lake, come to this mountain, you know?
Yeah.
And there's one story where Gaspare and his wife, I think her name is Miriella, and Gaspare's mother, all 3 of them, go to Lake Como, and they see a number of UFOs flying over there, and they manage to photograph it. And he even gets 8mm film of the UFOs flying around.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think he's not in the book that Stefano wrote in 2007.
Oh, really?
No, but he does come out after the book is published. He comes out and says, "Oh, I was involved with this group," you know?
Yeah.
And I actually found a photograph of Bruno Sanchecici, Gaspare, and Bruno's dog Dick.
Okay, 35 minutes.
Okay.
We'll put it up.
All right. And yeah, so Bruno's dog Dick, and then so you can put that up. And I also found a photograph of a UFO that GASPARRE took, which was quite difficult to find. But so he comes out in 2007, and he does have a shed load of UFO photographs that were taken in the 60s. You know?
Yeah.
This is early on in it. Like he meets Bruno in 1963, and in 1968, Bruno just takes him aside and says, "Okay, GASPARRE, you know, that's, you know, the aliens have said that you've done great work, and you've helped to show people that they're real, and now you're basically released from your obligation to them, you know." Yeah, and
they don't need you no more.
Yeah, they don't need anyone more. And there's lovely quotes from GASPARRE as well, saying that, you know, he says that, you know, that everyone was equal and everyone was treated the same. You know what I mean? Everyone was equal in the mission, but that Bruno had this nuclei, so that he was in contact with the Galactic Federation all the time.
And the nuclei is like a transmitter, like a headpiece or something that's implanted.
It's like a transmitter.
Bluetooth.
You know, it's like that. Yeah, it's like that, and it allows them to communicate. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's yeah.
So GASPARRE was released.
So GASPARRE was released. You know.
Okay.
And again, this seems to be the way that it operates. Is that Garibaldi, or there are some other points of contact as well, would put people in contact with Bruno, and then Bruno would give them missions from the Galactic Federation. And again, the mission is always to increase awareness about love and friendship, and also the Galactic Federation. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll tell you, I guess I'll talk some more about the aliens. Like.
Okay, but just so you know, we're at 37 minutes, so.
Okay, so the aliens wanted to, they wanted to increase love, and all of these kind of things. Yeah?
So that they could power their ships.
Yeah, but it's more than that. They're saying that like people are going down the wrong route when they're developing nuclear weapons and all these kind of things.
Yeah, it's like anti-civilization or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's so in a way, and again, this is such a popular theme from the 50s to the 70s in kind of UFO lore, you know, that nuclear weapons are bad, and that the aliens have some, you know, they're attracted to them, and they want to stop them. They want to stop us from essentially destroying ourselves. You know, that kind of way. Yeah. So, around about. So it starts off that the aliens, around about the mid to late 60s, the aliens say that they need some help getting supplies. Okay?
Okay.
So what they ask for is fruit and vegetables and water. And these are delivered in a truck. And the truck basically drives out to what's essentially a truck stop in the middle of nowhere. And they're met by Bruno and his friend. You remember Giancarlo from the start? Giancarlo and Bruno meet the truck. And then Bruno says, "Oh, well, Giancarlo is going to supervise this workforce that we have arriving any moment to clear the truck. Yeah. Why don't you come on in here and I'll buy you a coffee?" So they go into the cafe and he buys them a coffee. And the aliens just use their transporter technology to make all the fruit and water and stuff disappear in the truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the truck guy comes back and he talks about how efficient the workers are at emptying the truck.
Yeah.
And he's very happy at everything. And this goes on for a while. Then the aliens ask for different things as well. Like they ask for chemicals, like, you know. And some of them are radioactive chemicals and they're quite difficult to get. So then they have to find someone, like say a chemistry professor or something, or someone that works in a chemistry lab, that can source these items for them.
Right, someone with access.
Yeah, and they start providing these things, and like there's even a little comment when they say like that they give the chemicals to them in the 60s, But it's not until like the 80s or 90s that these chemicals start to get used in electronics, particularly in cameras and optical stuff. Yeah, interesting. So another thing is that around about the late 60s, the aliens let them in on a different secret. Like, they're not the only aliens on the planet Earth. Okay? There are about 200 of them based in each of the bases, each of their 6 bases. But there is also another faction. And this faction, the aliens call the Contrary.
The Contrary.
Yeah, as in the contrary.
Like the opposite.
The opposite, yeah. They shortened that to CTR.
Okay.
Okay? Now, the humans had been calling the aliens W56. And it's not a W, it's 2 V's for victory. And then 56 for the year that they met the aliens. So, so at this time, the aliens tell them that their actual real name for themselves is the Akari. That's what the aliens call themselves.
Okay.
And the Akari is I believe, like a Sanskrit word for sages.
Yeah.
Akari.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are the Contrary like bad guys?
The Contrary are the bad guys. The Contrary are materialistic, and they're selfish, and they want to live in. They're also described as science worshippers. Yeah. So now it's a battle between good and evil.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. And then the aliens start saying, "Oh well, things have got worse since the mid 50s. More people are interested in material things rather than their relationships with people. And people are not looking after each other, and they're moving away from this traditional way of life. So there's less love and friendship. So their technology, it's harder and harder every year for them to power their technology."
Okay.
Yeah. So now, round about this time in the early 70s, the aliens say to Bruno, "You need to get more people involved because we need an embassy." So Bruno starts building a villa on the outskirts of Milan. It's at this villa. So it's quite a large villa, and the villa is supposed to act as an embassy.
The embassy, yeah.
Yeah, so what the idea is that, first of all, they would be...
Instead of going back to Bruno's house, they could go to the embassy.
They go to the embassy, and you can deal with larger crowds of people to spread this message of love and peace and returning to a older, more traditional way of life.
Okay.
And it's at this embassy that Bruno takes a famous photograph of... Do you remember the 9-foot tall alien?
Yeah, the guy that drinks from the bottle.
The guy that drinks from the bottle, yeah. There's a number of different aliens. Like, I couldn't go into it because of time. Like, but there's a lot of different aliens, and they each have their own personality and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the main alien is this big tall guy, and his name is Dimpiero. And Dimpiero is photographed by Bruno at this.
The embassy?
At the embassy, this villa on the outskirts of Milan. So I've actually got that photograph as well, so I can show you
44
that too.
44 minutes.
Okay. And yeah, I mean, oh yeah. So the embassy doesn't work. People are getting more and more materialistic.
Yeah.
And they're showing less and less love and compassion for their fellow man. So the power of the Akari's technology is getting weaker and weaker.
Right.
And then eventually, in 1978, the Contrary attack the bases of the Akari, and they defeat them. Yeah, because their technology is powered on materialism.
Right.
And exactly. And a lack of, like, you prefer money over your relationship with people, or,
Okay.
Yeah, so their technology is powered on negative energy.
Yeah.
Like the energy of materialism, and they basically become more powerful than the Akari. And this happens between the 50s and the 70s. And then in 78, the Akari say that they have to leave, you know? But if the love and friendship and compassion returns, then they too will return.
So are there people that are like actually still like trying to get the Akari back or something?
Well,
did you find any of that information, or?
It was really hard to find in. I mean, I've left so much of the story out just to make it fit an hour. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you. So in 1978, then Bruno, or not Bruno, but you remember Stefano that wrote the book?
Yes.
Yeah, he said that the that 1978 coincides with an increase in UFO activity, negative UFO activity in Italy. And
that's when they were fighting?
That's when the final battles took place.
Okay.
And the Akari left, you know? So I looked it up. He didn't expand on that, but I looked it up. And it is true. There's almost no sightings between 1954, when 10,000 people at a football match saw a UFO in the sky. And then there was a fall of this stuff called angel hair. And that's 1954, which is 2 years before they met the Akari. Yeah. Then in 1978, when the Akari left, there was a whole load of UFO sightings. Like it was the busiest year for UFO sightings in Italy. Like outside of Turin, these two hikers saw a bright light in the sky, and one of them disappeared and reappeared a few minutes later, and she had a really bad scald on her leg. And both of the hikers had really serious conjunctivitis. And then, let's see, yeah, the same year...
Their eyes get burnt.
Yeah, the same year, this young motorist breaks down on the road, and while he's trying to fix his car, he sees these two guys come out of the forest, you know? And they're wearing weird suits and helmets. So he jumps in the car and locks the doors, and they come over and they start eyeballing him through the car.
Creepy.
Yeah, very creepy. And then they don't do anything. They just walk off into the woods. And then this orange sphere raises up from behind the trees and just takes off.
Maybe they're trying to see if he was like one of the Akari.
And then one last case is Pierre Zanfretti. I think is how you would pronounce his name.
Pierre?
Pierre, let's call him. Pierre. P-I-E-R? Pierre? Anyway, he's a security guard at a place called Casa Nostra. Really, Casa Nostra.
North House.
And he's doing his rounds. And while he's out on his rounds, he goes into the garden and he sees some kind of character over in the corner, and he goes to confront them because he's a security guard.
Yeah.
And then his boss, who's back at the base, gets a thing on the radio saying, "Oh, I think I see someone in the garden. I'm going to talk to them, you know?
Yeah. I'm
going to tell them, get out of here, like." And he goes over, and then the boss says, "Did you find that man?" And then the last thing he hears on the radio is, "He's no man!" In a really kind of strained voice, you know? Like panicked voice.
He's no man.
Yeah, he's no man. And then when the boss finds him, Pierre is lying on the ground, you know, and he's really shook up and he's in shock.
Yeah.
And he claims to have been kidnapped by this yellow creature with big green eyes, who to me sounds like a contrary straight away right there.
Yeah.
You know? And then he claims to have been kidnapped by these guys 11 times between 1978 and 1981.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's an uptick in negative UFO activity from 1978.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's it. So I guess the real message here is try and increase the love and friendship between people.
That's what they wanted.
Yeah, that's what they wanted, like.
But they just left.
Compassion, empathy, love, friendship. So I think that's the end of my research on the friendship case.
So basically these aliens were the My Little Ponies.
Yeah,
50s.
yeah. They're really into love and friendship, you know.
Okay, so right, we have 10 minutes.
Okay.
Final thoughts. I don't know, like, why would they need guys to do this stuff when they have teleportation stuff?
Yeah, they actually asked this, and the aliens said that they didn't really need any of the food or water or vegetables, but that trading successfully with people builds up this bond and it builds up trust between them.
So they were doing it for the humans' benefit.
They were doing it for the benefit of the relationship between them and the humans.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Any more?
I don't know. I mean, okay, so Bruno, Giulio, and Giancarlo were the only people who communicated directly with them?
They're the only people that communicated directly with them. The other way that the aliens communicated was mainly by radio, but also Paolo and Gaspare as well describe incidences where there would be a flash of light and a note would materialize out of thin air and fall on the ground. Gaspare as well describes times where there would be a flash of light and then a reel of tape would fall out and you would put that in the machine and the tape would be a recorded message from the aliens.
And the aliens that they saw looked like humans.
I couldn't find the only people that said they saw the aliens directly. The only people that apparently saw the aliens directly were Bruno, Giancarlo, and Giulio.
Okay.
There is a time where Gaspare said that he was invited to Bruno's house and that he arrived late because he was waylaid. And when he got there, there was about a dozen people in the garden. And across the way from Bruno's house, there's a hillside, a wooded hillside. And the people said that the aliens came out of the tree line and that the big guy leaned against the tree and they waved at them. And so the aliens were waving at them. But he said that he did not witness this himself and he was really sorry that he didn't. But that everyone there seemed to be in awe, you know?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm gonna extend a moment to our viewers. If you would like to maybe give your thoughts in a comment, let us know what you think down below first. Like, just pause the video if you want and write out what you think about this case, because I think we're about to just kind of destroy it.
Why? What's fishy about this case?
The tall alien leaned against a tree.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
And the ones that they saw, all of the ones they saw looked like humans.
All of the ones that they saw looked like humans, yes.
But there were no one else other than the 3 original guys went into the cave. Which is a huge,
that's correct,
a huge network where all those species were,
but correct.
They only saw the species that looked like humans.
That is correct, yes. And Paolo saw the guy downtown that looked like he's just an ordinary guy working for the electric company.
Yeah. And then there's the tiger statue.
Yeah.
And puffs of light, or explosion, little poof.
And they put it on a sideboard, yeah. Why? What are you saying? Are you saying that wasn't...
I think that this was like an early... I don't know, like an early hippie mafia.
Like
trying to create a religion or a
Have you ever heard that quote by Arthur C. Clarke that says, like, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff literally is magic. It's like parlor magic, you know? So why? What do you think is going on?
So there's Bruno.
Mm.
And Bruno writes books about theology.
That's correct.
Does Bruno just want something to write another book about?
I don't think so, because Bruno had passed away. The legend is that on his deathbed, Bruno asked his friend Stefano to write this book. He said, like, the world must know about the friendship. You know, they must know about what we experienced and...
So, so Stefano wrote the book.
Stefano wrote the book, yeah.
What's-his-face took all the pictures.
Gaspare took all the pictures. Garibaldi took a lot of pictures as well.
Okay.
And Garibaldi seems to be intimately related to it, because a lot of characters that have been introduced, a lot of them came through Garibaldi, and specifically through the magazine that I think he might have published or definitely worked for.
That's another thing. So they were in like a UFO club?
All of them are in some form of UFO club or something. A lot of them wrote to this famous, he was an Italian diplomat, but he wrote a lot of books on UFOs. His name was Alberto Pergio.
Okay, so there's a government official, basically. Diplomat.
Yeah, and he, between 1954 and 1971, he wrote 4 books on UFOs. And then in 1980, they pulled him from his post and moved him to Brazil to get him out of the way, because the idea is that they thought he was an embarrassment. And also, Gaspare has a letter from Pergio, who was involved in this meeting, and he wanted to write a book about his experiences to spread love and friendship.
Okay.
You know? But people in the group were like, no, we have to work in secret for the moment, it's not the right time, and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And when did they come forward with the information? Like, is this was in the late 70s that they published the book? And
No.
This is actually the book has been translated into English in 2009.
Yeah, but it was only published in 2007.
So, I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they're hopeful, or?
I think it was all I don't think there was anything too malicious, but it was definitely it's definitely this Bruno Samcici is running some kind of con, you know what I mean? But it's not the kind of con where he's trying to make a load of money. It's the kind of con where he's trying to give a positive message, you know? There's very much a feeling of our brothers from beyond the stars about it, you know? And that they're here to give us moral lessons.
We should learn from
that we should learn from them, yeah. And all of the people involved, they're already involved in UFOs, and they really want to believe. And he gives them something to believe in.
Yeah.
And he gives them something positive to believe in, you know? Now, the other thing about it is that I could really only find these 3 characters, Stefano, Paolo, and Gaspare.
Mm-hmm.
I could only really find these 3 characters that were willing to talk about it. And Gaspare gives a lot of interviews about it, you know?
Yeah. He was the painter that took photos?
Yeah, he still really believes. And there's this quote from him when he says like that, you know, of course I question it. You know, I'm a sincere man. And he goes, sometimes I wondered why they wanted the food. And then they said it was to increase love. He goes, still I didn't believe it. He goes, but then I thought, maybe by asking us to do these things, it's a test. You know, and to me, that's almost like there's something quasi-religious about it.
Yeah.
It's like a test of faith. They're testing his faith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my feeling for it. Like, and he, to this day, he says that he really does believe it really happened, you know?
Because it's kind of like a weird, it's kind of like a weird hazing thing, and then...
Yeah. Do you want to hear another interesting thing? Like, the only people to have seen the tall aliens or visited the thing, like we were saying, that claim to have done all these things were Bruno, Giancarlo, and Giulio, yeah?
Yeah.
So, right before, like, Stefano was writing a book, yeah? And it was 50 years of amicizia, I think. It's the Italian for friendship, but I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong, you know? Because I don't have it written down and I don't speak Italian. But, yeah, so he was publishing this book, 50 years, and in it, he claimed that the aliens took him up in his ship and flew him around the galaxy, and because he's an engineer, he got to talk to them about the different technologies they use and stuff. Mm-hmm. And before he finished writing the book, he passed away suddenly in 2012.
Wait, was he offed?
That's, you know? But yeah, I mean, you can get that book as well on. You can find a lot of chapters of it on Google Books in English as well. And there's a lot of technical kind of stuff because he writes about the books and about their technology and how he thinks it works, etc., etc. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Any final thoughts?
Me?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think we could learn a lot from those aliens.
I think, yeah, I mean, the aliens are not wrong. Like, you know, they're not wrong. Like, we need to move away from materialism and towards more love and compassion, you know, for each other. Mm. It's, I mean, like, if only, like, it's a solution to climate change as well as powering all our technology on Umaretta or what, you know, the power of love, you know.
With the power of love.
With the power of love, yeah.
That would be such a cool... Oh my gosh. This would be such a cool anime. Right. I don't know what to think. I mean, honestly, like, what was the guy's motive and, like...
It's hard to work out. You know, the other interesting thing is it's really hard to find any concrete information on Bruno. Like, there's no information on him. All the other people you can find information on. Bruno, not so much. But he does seem to be involved because everyone interviewed says, oh yeah, Bruno. And he seems like a really charismatic kind of guy, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it was all just an elaborate augmented reality...
A hoax.
Augmented reality morality play. You know what I mean? Involving the community. I don't know what to say. Like, I really don't think there's anything more than that. Like, you know.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to know what you think, and if you've heard of this before, and if you know, what do you think it is? What do you think happened? Because I'm confused about the motive for making it up, but I don't believe it to be true. Like, I don't believe that there are aliens living in the heart of our Earth with different weather systems and that look just like us.
There's some of them look like us. They actually said in it as well that some of them are trans-dimensional beings that project a human form into our reality. But I think that's enough. Yeah,
I know, I can feel that you have a lot more information.
Oh, so much.
But that won't fit into a video. No. But look how far we got today. That's awesome. Thank you for joining us and listening to our research. James's research on the friendship case.
The friendship case.
The friendship case. So if you want to look that up, if you are interested, maybe we can get a few links ready for them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
James has them somewhere, or
I have the photograph of.
We're putting them in. We've already put them in.
Yeah, I have some photographs. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys. So we're gonna let you go. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing and all those other things. And we'll see you all soon in the next one. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.